What's going on, everyone? And welcome into the college football DFS live stream here, Saturday morning, October 16th, here with you live, 10:30 a.m. Eastern. I'm ready. Pete Cole is ready here with me. We got plenty of college football action to talk about today. Pete, how are you doing today? We got 12-game early slate we're going to break down shortly here.
Yeah, man, I'm doing well. And as we're talking off air, this is going to be a really interesting slate to break down because I'm really interested to see what you have to say because I got like two or three directions I want to go, two or three different strategies. I'm not sure which way to go. So I've been looking forward to this. Have somebody to talk to and break all this down. So
yeah, we got a ton of interesting games going on early and then all throughout the day. So what we do here for you, Fantasy Alarm, DFSalarm.com, is I have the early slate playbook for you guys playing on DraftKings, and then Pete Cole has the night slate playbook for DFS for the night. How many games is that on that night slate? Seven usually, eight tonight.
Yep.
So he's got that covered for you. And FanDuel's all day slate. You can kind of pick and choose from both of ours and piece together some lineups because they love to do things differently than DraftKings. So do that way. By the way, on Discord right now, we're answering all your questions. If you guys got lineup questions, strategies for DFS today, maybe some bets out there. We got, I got an article out on wageralarm.com if you want to check that out. If that's your sort of thing. But DFS is our main focus here for this early slate. And then obviously in Discord, we'll be answering questions for the night slate. Pete will be there for sure. And we are going to help you guys win as we usually do every Saturday. So this slate, we got 12 games, as I mentioned. 6 early games Actually, 7 early games that kick off at noon Eastern, so keep that in mind. And then if you're making some late swaps, we got 5 in the later window at 3:30 Eastern. Just to run through some of the higher totals of the day, kind of the offenses and teams we're looking to stack. Miami, North Carolina, the highest total, 63.5. And North Carolina is 7.5-point favorites. So actually, a close game. We're looking at both sides of that one for sure. Oklahoma State, Texas, that's a 61 total, and Texas is only 4-point favorites. So obviously, again, looking at both sides of that game. Florida, LSU, 59.5 over under, and Florida is 11.5 favorites, 11.5 favorites. So, obviously looking at Florida there, but LSU can has some interesting value guys that we're definitely going to get into, Pete, just as a teaser. Texas A&M, Missouri, 59.5 as well. Texas A&M, 11.5-point favorites there as well. And then UCF, Cincinnati, with Cincinnati as big favorites there. We're probably just looking at the Cincinnati offense for cash games there, but 56.5 over under. And then Pittsburgh, Virginia Tech rounds it out as one of the top 6 totals at 56 over under, and Pittsburgh just 5-point favorites. So a closer game there. We can definitely look at both sides of that one. Well, let's just start with the quarterbacks, and if any of these from the offenses we talked about or other teams involved, I'll tell you what. I mean, Sam Howell's at 9.2 is the most expensive on DraftKings, North Carolina quarterback, and probably someone that's going to be popular, especially in cash today because he's playing on this North Carolina team that's going to be one of the higher scoring offenses on the whole slate for sure, and in that high total game versus Miami where little defense is going to be played on both sides. So how interested are you in Sam Howell, I guess, compared to we got Kenny Pickett at 8.4, Emory Jones at 8.3, Max Johnson, if you want to go that route, at 8.2, Desmond Ridder at 8.1 as well. But Sam Howell kind of in a tier of his own is price-wise on the slate.
Yeah, obviously I think Howell's going to be the chalk play.
Yep.
Everywhere I'm seeing him is going to be 50% or over at the quarterback. Is he the best quarterback? I mean, he probably is a core play. But man, I don't know. I don't sit here and talk about Sam Howell. We know what he can do is, he can throw 300 yards, and he's also shown this year that he's got some legs, which has been a main thing with him for DFS because he's running now. So let me see. He's thrown for over 300 4 of his last 6. He has over 100 yards rushing in 3 games. So, yeah, he's going to be popular. He's going to be a good play. But, man, I've been as the morning's going on, and I'm a huge Pickett fan anyways, but I'm more and more on Kenny Pickett.
Okay.
You know, it's a big difference. I mean, he's probably going to be around 20-25% owned compared to Howell. So maybe Pickett's more of a GPP type play. I don't want to push anybody off Howell because he's going to be popular. And if he has a huge game, I don't want to be the one telling you guys to get off him. But I have a lot of interest in Pickett today, and mainly because we know Pickett's going to throw. He's having a huge season. I mean, they're calling him Kenny Heisman in Pittsburgh, and he does have a chance at the Heisman. They're going to struggle to run the ball against Virginia Tech. So I really think we're going to get a big game here from Pickett. We know, he's got the receiver Addison, who I think is one of the top 2 receivers in college football. But it's kind of the same similar situation as Howell. It's either you go Howell and Downs or Pickett and Addison and take a little bit of a discount that way. So maybe you can get maybe one more decent player going the Pittsburgh route. But see, Addison's only $700 less than Downs. So definitely you need at least one of them, Howell or Pickett. Obviously you can't get both. But I think Howell probably still is a cash play, but I have a lot of interest in Pickett, and I may have gone Pickett.
Yeah, I mean, I don't mind Pickett at all. I can't blame you for going that route for sure. And we're actually getting some money on Pittsburgh as bigger favorites now, 6.5-point favorites on the road here in Virginia Tech. So they were 5-point favorites as of yesterday. So that's interesting to see. But I mean, this Pitt offense is one I've definitely personally overlooked this year, just from the amount of times where I've seen Pickett and Jordan Addison go off together or other parts of that offense, wishing I had a share or two in lineups is definitely more than once this season. So. And an interesting thing to watch, and I'm going to try to monitor this. So this North Carolina game is 3:30 Eastern. Reportedly, I've seen that weather might be a factor here. So that is just, there's going to be apparently 10-mile-per-hour winds and about 30% chance of rain throughout the game. And that's just something that, if that's a little detail that has you worried about the passing in that game, it's just something to keep in mind. It might not be a factor at all. And
good point. Good point. It's Pittsburgh.
Yeah.
It's 3:30 also. So.
Yeah. So and Pickett's So Pickett's 3:30. I mentioned, so we have the 5 later games. So and Pickett is the only one. Yeah, the only quarterback that you'd reasonably pivot to. If it came in and it was like, it's pouring in North Carolina right now, I want to pivot away. But I mean that just to say that Howell still has a ton of value rushing, as you mentioned. Yeah. He's got 3 100-yard rushing games this year already, and 3 touchdowns as a runner on the ground. I mean, his floor is very good outside of his passing. So And even if it is, maybe a shower or two during the game, it really might not be a factor. But I would be remiss if I didn't mention that because we've seen weather play a factor in DFS all the time. So especially for these, I feel like ACC games have a tendency to get a little messy and sloppy just from a overall play. And North Carolina just has been a disappointing team. I wouldn't be surprised if they let down at all. Just their offense has always been there, but the defense is always this year has been a little shaky. So, but I don't know, we'll see. Howell's definitely gonna be chalky, and he'll be popular for sure. So, he's the way to go in cash. But Pickett is an interesting pivot. Emory Jones is probably my favorite pay up GPP option. I mean, a high scoring Florida offense going against a terrible LSU defense that's suffered a ton of injuries to some top guys, notably Derek Stingley Jr. and their other starting quarterback are both out. A couple pass rushers on the D-line. Florida's not going to have a problem, but the problem with Florida is you just don't know where the production is going to come from. So it's, if it's going to be the running backs, if it's going to be the backup Richardson coming in over Jones, You just don't know. So I think it's just boom or bust for Emory Jones, right?
Yeah, and
Is that your feeling?
Yeah, and definitely. And I have a little bit interest in him also. LSU is giving up 33 fantasy points a game to quarterbacks in the SEC, and they have no pass rush. So we know Jones has legs. So yeah, I would say GPP of course, but
yeah, Jones can run.
Yep.
Yep.
Yeah, definitely take a chance of him in GPP. So he's got at least 10 rush attempts in 5 of his last 6 games. So it's kind of a safe floor right there.
Yeah,
I don't mind that call.
Okay.
And you got Ritter, $200 last race, and I think Ritter's got a really soft matchup against UCF.
Yeah.
The problem with Ritter is like you haven't seen that game yet, and we're waiting for that big game.
I know.
I'm not sure if it's going to come today because it may end up being a blow here. I got a funny feeling this may be a Jerome Ford day, but Ritter is there, and he's dropped $900 from last week, and they're favored by 21. So Ritter is in the conversation also, 81.
Yeah, I think Ritter's going to be probably very popular in cash just because of his price and what kind of quarterback, what kind of DFS stud he can be. We haven't, as you mentioned, his highest DFS output was 36 at DraftKings in week 1 against Miami, Ohio. And I mean, he had good games. Notre Dame, Indiana was those 2 tough road games that Cincinnati won, and he had a rushing touchdown on both. So he does tend to pick it up when he's facing tougher opponents. But UCF will not keep this close. They have, we'll see some reports coming out here. This game's at noon, but Dylan Gabriel's likely out again. Their starting quarterback, and they've been without their starting running back and starting best receiver. So like the offense probably won't keep pace with Cincinnati. But the thing with Cincinnati, we mentioned this before with teams like them and maybe some of the other big favorites like Georgia, Ohio State this year. The question is like in a blowout if the guys are still playing. If there's that risk and Cincinnati's 21.5 point favorites, and they're gonna win big. I think Ritter and all the starters are going to be in there in the fourth quarter, even if they're winning by 4 touchdowns. I mean,
I think so too.
Yeah, we've seen it already this year against last week against Temple. They were playing deep into the game because Cincinnati has a ton of motivation to win every game by 50 if they can.
Yeah, so get a good bowl spot.
Yep, hopefully get a playoff.
I think that's a really good point you just brought up. Yep, that's a good point you just brought up because a lot of people. That's always a conversation about where they're going to bench them, and I think you're right. Cincinnati is one of these teams which they don't, and they're just going to keep their foot on UCF's throats.
Yep.
And keep the guys in because I think these higher scores are going to give them better seeding or better looks in December. So yeah, that's a good call, and he probably will. And said Ritter has not had that big game yet. We're all expecting, and maybe it comes today. UCF is soft, man.
Yeah,
I sure as hell ain't playing Mikey Keene from UCF at the quarterback. So.
No, I know. Like, hopefully, perfect world, we get UCF scoring a couple times, keeping it close, maybe at halftime, and we get Ritter saying like, "All right, let me score a couple touchdowns on the ground like he can." But we'll see. I think he's interesting. We'll get to Ford in a second. I like that call. But he'll be a good play too.
The question is, I can't see any of these guys being so high owned, even Ritter, because if anybody's going to be on Howell, you really can't play another quarterback in that 8K range if you want to get all these running backs you want. So,
true.
I don't know. I mean, maybe Ritter and pick around the same, probably around the 20% ownership range. But unless we're just overhyping Howell's ownership, I think Howell's going to be really high.
Yeah, one of the things I've noticed actually in recent weeks in college football DFS, it seems like a lot of the people that are cashing maybe the higher scoring lineups are using cheap receivers. Yeah. They're not worrying about the high price guys, which is the way I've been doing it too. And you get some of the top running backs that you want, the quarterbacks that you want, and you worry about that first. And there's always enough value at receiver that we'll be getting to during this live stream, that you can get a couple guys in the 3K range to make it work. Yeah, there are. There's a few definitely ones that I'm looking at, and I'm sure you are too. So, we'll get to that in a sec. But I mean, so I guess if you are trying to build that more balanced lineup and pay up for a receiver or multiple running backs, some of these cheaper quarterbacks we'll be looking at. So we got Adrian Martinez in play, 7,900. Casey Thompson, 7,800 for Texas. I think you can throw KJ Jefferson from Arkansas, Peyton Thorne's in play from Michigan State, Spencer Sanders a little farther down at 7,100. That's probably the limit for like the safer plays. In the playbook, you'll notice I wrote about Jerry Bohannon from Baylor at 6,300. He's interesting.
Well, actually, I like. Yeah. I don't mind Bohannon.
He's a nice payout. We'll compare him to all the other guys I mentioned. I mean, because I also like Spencer Sanders, 7,100. I think that game versus Texas could turn into a, obviously the 61 over/under says it's going to be a higher scoring shootout game, but Texas' rush defense and overall defense, it hasn't been great, and Sanders can get it done both ways. But I mean, yeah, like, do you like Bohannon over them for the savings or any other guys I didn't mention?
I do like Sanders. I've been a Sanders guy. I've also been burned by Sanders a lot.
Oh yeah,
but we did see Texas got burned by a mobile quarterback last week. But I do like Bohannon. When I was making some early builds for cash, and call me crazy, but I was putting Bohannon in some and Jack Tuttle in some. But first Bohannon. I mean, Bohannon looked really good last week against West Virginia, and Wes Schubert said that before the game that watch out, this kid's gonna, and he did. I mean, he had like 40 fantasy points, I think. And you'd think you would have saw a big bump in his salary. You didn't. He's still sitting at 6'3". So BYU can be beat. They're 82nd in passing yards per game. They're ranked 21st in TD touchdowns allowed, but ranked 24th. So whatever, these numbers don't mean them. But Bohannon, I think Bohannon's in a really good spot. It's a tough matchup. But I think he's got that rushing upside. I think BYU's going to struggle containing Thornton and then our cheapy Estrada there today. So I have a lot of interest in Bohannon next 6'3". Anytime I see these minimum guys, even like a Jack Tuttle. Now, Tuttle's only 4'9". We're assuming Penix is out. But if Tuttle is in, and we saw Tuttle last year, he played really well at game against Wisconsin. All he needs to do is fall in the end zone once, and he's going to make value at 4'9". So
yeah, it's so cheap.
Very cheap. You roll like a Howell and a Tuttle, and then you can pretty much get anybody else you want in your lineup mainly. So, man, I like these cheap guys. I like Tuttle and I like Bohannon. I mean, there's $1,400 difference between Tuttle and Bohannon, but I may end up with one of those guys in my main lineup.
Yeah, I don't mind that at all. And I'm at the point where I mentioned those guys like Adrian Martinez, Casey Thompson, KJ Jefferson. I'd rather just go up to Ritter and get Ritter and figure it out elsewhere.
Right.
Yeah. So I like the Bohannon call for sure is one I'm interested in. I didn't even think about Tuttle. I know Michigan State's pass defense has not been great, as you
it's not
talking about.
The secondary can be beat, and they've shown that they can be beat. But
is Tuttle the cheapest? Is he the cheapest starting quarterback?
Yeah, he's got to be. I'm thinking.
Yeah, I'm just scrolling down to see.
There's some. Well, these guys all must be guys that are sitting like Cole Kramer and some of these guys. But I think he's got to be. Bo Nix is 6. DJ Finley. Yeah, no.
Yeah, he's the.
Yeah. So yeah, he's got to be the lowest. I mean, Mikey Keene 6'3". Who's going to play Mikey Keene when Jerry Bohannon is 6'3"? So
no chance.
There's some cheap prices there. Connor Baslick is 6'3", but when I see a guy at 4'9" at minimum that's going to have the ball in his hands the whole game, for cash, it does interest me because it doesn't take much. All he's going to do is roll into the end zone one time. They get beat 63-7, but he's going to make value. So I can get my point somewhere else. So I have interest in him and Bohannon.
Yeah, I don't mind that. And the Michigan State rush defense has been pretty good this year. So. Yeah, I think Indiana will need to be passing it. By the way, that is
a 302 a game. 302 pass yards. I didn't realize that Michigan State was giving up that much. And you hit a good point. They're only giving up 117 on the ground. So 302 in the air is a pretty bad number. I think it's actually the worst on the slate now I'm seeing. So Jack Tuttle, man.
Yeah.
I see my name atop the leaderboard signing Jack Tuttle.
I gotta say, when I was writing the playbook up, I think I just ignored Indiana for the most part because of I didn't know Penix's status. Like that's a noon game and he's not confirmed out yet, but reportedly, they said he won't play. And he got hurt last week, so I wouldn't expect him to play. But the Tuttle call is that's an interesting one, and we'll go when we go to receivers. We could see if there's one or two to pair, cheap pairings.
Well, we
there.
do.
Yeah, we do.
And actually, we do with them. So we got
nice.
We got Ty Freifogel. So
yeah, there you go.
Setting it up.
Yeah, we'll get to him in more in depth in a sec. All right, let's go to running backs here. Bijan Robinson at the top of the position pool here, as always. Always in play, but I think tough to play him at that price in cash. Obviously, he can go off for 30 to 40 DraftKings points at any point, but I think there's other ways we go in cash. GPP, go for it. Especially if you're trying to game stack that one, that could be a shootout with Oklahoma State. So Tyler Beatty, 8K in play. I think a little bit risky for cash, but he should get enough touches overall receiving wise as well to kind of return value. In a kind of a game that's been higher scoring, and I mentioned Texas A&M getting some love here. They're 11.5 point favorites. That's jumped up. They were 8.5 point favorites. So Vegas and I guess the betting public are saying that Texas A&M is going to win more comfortably. What that means for Missouri's offense is they're probably going to be passing more if they're trailing. Missouri's rush defense, we're going to get to it here actually right now because the rush defense has been terrible, and they're the worst in the one of the worst in the country. They're the worst in the slate by far, and we've been targeting this every week in DFS as long as they're on the slate. And this week we got Texas A&M. So I'll say it right now. Isaiah Spiller is a lock in my cash lineups. I'm not even thinking twice about it because it's just that we've seen the lead back against Missouri have massive stat lines every single week.
Every week, right? We started with the guy from Central Michigan. You got Garo for Boston College.
Yep.
Chris Rodriguez, I think, right from Kentucky. Yep. Every week, but as somebody's scored at least over 100 yards. I think besides last week.
I think even last week they played North Texas and
What's his name? Who had a big game last night? Yeah, I was wrong. Yep.
Tory had a good stat line last week. Tennessee, Tyon Evans smashed them.
Evans, that's the name I was thinking.
Even I actually looked at the game when they played what is it, Southeast Missouri. That's SEMO. I think that's what. Whoever their lead back was had like 90 some rushing yards, and they blew them out in that game. So yeah. So yeah, I mean Spiller, and then while we're on it, I mean we got Devin Achane at 5,100, also very much in play. Just does not
Can you play Achane and Spiller together?
I would, for sure.
Cash. I mean, GPPs definitely, but I didn't think it's just many others running back.
I think it's in play for cash. Yeah,
you can, right?
Yeah, I think that he's cheap enough. If like Achane was maybe a little higher than that, I would think twice. I would think more about it. But I think 5,100 is definitely cheap enough where you can just stack up that whole backfield, especially because Spiller at 6,600 is a value for being the lead back against Missouri. So. Yeah. But yeah, so Spiller's one of my top plays for sure. So let's just go through. I mean, you mentioned Jerome Ford was a guy you're looking at. So we got Tyler Algier, Jerome Ford, Jalen Warren, Chris Rodriguez, Kenneth Walker, all above Isaiah Spiller. Any of those guys that you are looking at for heavily?
I think for cash, I think the way I've been looking at builds, this is just say I'm playing Howell. I I think in a perfect world, you want the three big running backs. To me, the three big running backs there: Walker, 67. I mean, he's just this 23 carries a game. Nice matchup. Walker's a stud. Isaiah Spiller, who you just talked about, and I think the third is Jalen Warren. Now, Jalen Warren is, he's getting crazy carries. I mean, over 30 carries a game. He's going to break down here eventually, I think. And I mean, he's playing like Thurman Thomas and Barry Sanders and all those guys at Oklahoma State when you compare numbers for rushing. But I think those three are your top running backs, point per dollar on the slate. I mean, like Bijan's the best running back on the slate, but Warren, Spiller, and Walker are your best three. If you can get all three of those running backs in with how that's your cash lineup, or you got to only pick two if you want to play Josh Downs, the big receiver. You can't have your cake and eat it too. You can't have all these guys. So I think the strategy is you either run three on big running backs for cash, or two and play Downs. But which two of those three are your cash plays? They say Spiller's one. Then you're gonna make a decision between Warren and Walker, and I like both of them. So I may end up going two damn lineups today in cash because I can't make a decision on between Warren and Walker. Me personally, I think they're both in great spots.
Yeah, I lean Warren. And I wrote about him in the playbook. If you want some more stats and thoughts on him, I just think that like the role he has, he's in that Chuba Hubbard role now.
Yep,
I mean,
he's not gonna get vultured.
Yeah,
well, I guess either is Kenny Walker doesn't get vultured either. But I do agree. I think right now Warren is the better play, but not by much.
I do think with Michigan State though, if we're talking about that offense, the success that they've had it through the air and could have more success through the air against Indiana today than on the ground. I know, the talent of Kenneth Walker's is ridiculous, but I think just on the road, and this game's a really interesting one to me, and it's coming up at noon Eastern. I'm definitely going to be tuning in because Indiana is only 3.5 point underdogs, and that line has been going down and down. I think they started out at 5 or 6 point underdogs when it opened.
Jack Tuttle.
Yeah, Jack Tuttle news. Even with Penix out, people are back in Indiana here, and I think that's interesting because I mean they obviously have a chance to win this outright. Michigan State undefeated. People are just kind of waiting to take an L, and on the road to Indiana could be the week.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, I can see that.
Yeah.
And we saw last week what Kennedy Brooks did to Texas. 217 yards, 2 touchdowns, 25 carries.
That's what I'm looking at.
35 carries.
Yeah.
So Texas ranked 110 in rushing yards.
That's a big reason. And I saw that game and I was like, wow, like Texas can't stop anybody in the ground. And it's why I really like Warren here. And the volume that Warren's getting is hard to match. Because even someone like, I mean, like if you just look down, like even like Chris Rodriguez, even if obviously the matchup against Georgia is tough, but like someone like him is still sharing a backfield with Smoke.
Yeah.
But I just think that the volume he gets is hard to beat in a high scoring game where Oklahoma State might lean on the ground more often than not. Him and Sanders just kind of doing that read option plays, I just, Warren, maybe I'm being blind to it, but I see Warren. I'm like, I just remember how good every week Chuba Hubbard was in this role. And
agree.
Warren might be a better runner than Hubbard. I think like when you look at him, he's a bigger back. He's just a more like, Hubbard was a small shifty back. And I know obviously he's, now the starter in Carolina with McCaffrey out, but it's like I look at Warren, I'm like, this dude looks like a legit, future NFL running back. From Utah State transfer, coming over to the Big 12, and has quickly emerged as the lead guy there. Maybe a couple injuries helped out, but I think it's clear that he's like the most talented guy there, and won that job.
He's on pace for like 300 touches, and I just pulled up again. The only guys are Barry Sanders, Chuba, Thurman Thomas, Ernest Anderson. I think that's it. And that's some pretty good company around these guys. I think he's going to.
That's really good company.
Don't break him down here, but the passing game is getting a little bit healthier. So even Mike Gundy also looking down at Richardson a little bit more. But I think, especially for today, Warren is safe and he's the safest. But I think if somebody's gonna tell me they want Walker, I'm not gonna talk them off any longer.
Yeah, I think they're gonna lean and as we speak, Oklahoma State now just 3-point underdogs. They were 4-point underdogs as of this morning. So money coming in on Oklahoma State here against Texas. But besides that, I think Oklahoma State just has been winning. They're rolling with Warren as the guy. I don't know why they would change that and go to Richardson or anybody else unless Warren has like 2 fumbles in the first half or something. But
unless they just said maybe they're worried about burning him out. But it's a lot of carries for the kid. So it's only that.
I think it's something where they're just going to run it. They're just going to keep it going with what they have until, maybe they take that loss this week and that's what has them rethink things. But I think like the way they're running, it's going to be him and Sanders doing a lot of damage today against Texas. The only worry about him is Sanders maybe vulturing a couple touchdowns away, which is a worry for sure. But I think that's, the same thing could be said about Jerome Ford. Not so much Kenneth Walker, though. So there you go.
It's pushing me toward like Spencer Sanders more, too.
Yeah, Sanders is going to be interesting. I think like 7,100 going back to him. I think it's like a really good price. But as you mentioned, I and everyone else has gotten burned by him. So, more than once. And it's I'm just looking at it like last week is the perfect example of a Spencer Sanders game. He had 76 rushing yards, had a passing touchdown, but didn't even eclipse 200 passing yards and had 3 picks against Baylor. And Oklahoma State still won by 10. So that's just how it happens. All right, some of these cheaper.
I don't think he's going to end up being a quarterback we all want him to be either. So
no. I think, once Oklahoma State gets in like a really good recruit there, a dual threat that that can run it really well, like watch out. That team could be really good.
Yeah.
All right, some of these cheaper guys, running back pool, if we're looking to save a bit. Ty Chandler, Zamir White, Abram Smith, all in play. Tank Bigsby, I think, is a really good GPP play.
Mm-hmm.
I read about him in the playbook if you want to go check that out. I also wrote about Zamir White, and I want to get your thoughts on him. I think Georgia's they're starting to lean on him more. I think, they're in their tougher part of the schedule. They're playing these ranked teams every week, and Zamir White's starting to get at least, double-digit carries at least. He's scored twice in back-to-back games. I think 6,200 is just too cheap for being the lead back on like a really good Georgia team that's going to be playing ahead. Especially even today against Kentucky, they are 21.5-point favorites. So, and Kentucky's rush defense, not scaring me at all. When you're talking Georgia and what they can do. So I think Zamir White. I mean, what do you think about him when you compare him to maybe Ty Chandler? Cameron Harris is right there. Abram Smith.
And Cameron Harris has had a decent couple weeks. But I like that call on White. And it's always like you want somebody from this Georgia team that's so good, they're going to win. And he is more of a – he's got four rushing touchdowns the last 2 games. I mean, he is more of a high floor type guy. But now he's jumped. He's got 34 rushing attempts the last 2 weeks also. So, yeah, you're right. There's a big spike in his usage. You just never know with Georgia. I mean, anything could happen, especially if they're up so big. But I don't think I've played White all season. But yeah, I could definitely see White. GVPs especially. What's his price? What did you say it was 5'1"?
6'2".
So that's his price, or 6'2". So I didn't. So 6'2" is low.
It's a little hard to trust in cash. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly at that price. If it was 5'1", like I thought, I'm looking at David Cheney's price, but I think, but White is still. I mean, he's a horse when he's touched the ball 34 times the last 2 weeks, but GVP only.
Yeah,
this is a tough week for running backs. So I'm going up and down this list. I mean, beside those top guys,
they're really So I wanted to get to that right now. There isn't a lot of value at these running backs. I mean, so you mentioned a Cheney. Is it a Cheney or a Chain? I never.
I think it's a Chain. I call it a Cheney now. I could be totally off, so I apologize to his
It could be
parents
something
if I'm
entirely
wrong,
different
but
than what we're saying. Anyway,
a Sheen, but
a Shane. So compare him to Texas A&M. He's a change of pace guy compared to Spiller being the lead guy, but both could have big games against this Missouri defense today. Compare him to we're gonna get to it and bury the biggest value just looking at us right in the eye. Marquis Irving from Minnesota. We got Potts out for the season now, their lead back. Ibrahim was already out for the season. And we've seen both of them just have massive bell cow roles, especially for DFS value, just being studs because of the volume, because of how run heavy that offense is. So Irving presumably will be stepping into the lead back role. There's been some talk, some reports that it could be more of a committee, which has me a little worried off of like completely just locking him into cash, though 3,900 people might just be doing that anyway. And it's like something where, and this is what I wanted to talk to you about. Do you just eat the value, eat that chalk? Because if he goes off and you don't have him, you probably don't do as well, unless you have another value that does something similar. But I think it's tough to trust that, obviously, for value plays that are, below 4K. So, I mean, where are you at with Irving?
And I've been burned already once this year by not using Potts that week. When Mo went down and he was cheap and I just didn't believe it and he went off. Now, it's weird because I saw the OC saying that it's looking more like a committee. That I'm seeing the running back coach with all these great things to say about Irving. Irving was a good high school. He was a high school player too. He was a star, but now I'm seeing the Minnesota the beat for 24/7, who is one of the most reputable guys actually out there. But some of these beats are. He's saying that he's looking at 20+ touches for him. So because they want to see what they have in his freshman. And if there's any other beat, I'd say, it could be bullshit, but I know that means you put him in that flex spot, then you could possibly get a Downs with a Warren and Spiller and your Howell / the Pittsburgh quarterback. You know what I mean? So
Pickett, yeah.
It's a tough one. This is gonna make or break your lineup. So, we've been burned this before. All of a sudden, Irving, we look and then we look at the stats, and some other runners gotten 7 touches in the first quarter, and Irving hasn't touched the ball yet. You know what I mean? So you're always taking that chance. But I'm seeing his ownership projected around 25-27%, which is still a little bit below Warren, Walker, and Spiller, higher than Ford. But just once again, I'm like torn between playing 2 lineups today because I think I don't want to miss out on Irving. I just saw what Potts did. We saw what Mo Ibrahim is capable of. But
I think they're gonna
25 carries this season, but he already ranked second yards after contact behind Mo. So he forced 10 missed tackles per PFF.
Yeah, and
numbers, actually.
The only time we've seen him actually have a decent enough run in one single game was against Colorado, where Irving got 15 carries for 89 yards. Also had a catch in that game. But that was a game where they were blowing out Colorado and, just sat Potts. And it was early on where I think they were, Ibrahim had gotten injured the week or two before. So, and they had already given Potts, the lead back job. And Potts in that game, he had 121 yards and 3 touchdowns and 26 carries. So he already did his damage, and they just kind of brought in Irving for mop-up duty. But Irving, in that, we've mentioned this run-heavy offense that loves to just kind of lean on one guy. He got the run as the backup in that game, and he's been the backup to Potts the last 2 games. Compare that to some of these other guys just, clicking around. He's gotten more carries, and he's going to be the lead guy for sure. The only way he doesn't return value, in my opinion, is early in the game if he's just not doing anything, if he
Drops
can't,
ball, fumbles.
yeah, if he fumbles, if he, he's got, you look up and it's 10 carries for 10 yards, that kind of thing, then maybe they go somewhere else. They change, make a change at running back. But if he's having like a decent day and Minnesota's keeping it close at home against Nebraska, he's going to be the guy. He's going to be out there, I think. So it's just how they are.
I think you're right, but they're averaging 45.2 rushing attempts a game, almost 200 yards per game, and I have them graded as a 10th best run blocking unit in the nation. So easily, and Potts was getting like 25 DK points a game.
Yeah,
I think it is a risk worth taking.
Yeah,
but just know that it could blow up. You know what I mean? And even if he gets 15 touches, I'll take 15 to 17 touches at 3.9. He doesn't take much. He scores a touchdown. He's made value for us.
The thing is, the pricing for this came out before Potts was confirmed out for the year, so they didn't have Irving. I think if that news was different, they'd have Irving maybe at 5, or higher. I was gonna say 5K or above, but and if he was, if he was like 5'5",
wasn't Potts in the 6s?
I don't know. It's not priced here. I think because it wasn't on a main slate that game, but yeah, like if you're saying Irving is 5'5" and above or 6K, then it's more of a thing where you have to think about. But
yep,
I think at 3.9, he doesn't have to do a ton to return value. So I think it's just chalk you might have to eat. And if he has a good game, then you're rolling. And if he doesn't, then maybe enough people in the same cash builds also have him in the lineup. I do think it's interesting if you wanted to go, I think Kai Thomas is a guy, he also got run in that Colorado game, had a touchdown, 66 yards on 7 attempts, but he hasn't recorded another carry in any other game this year.
Yeah, I think he would be the running back too, probably, between him and Bryce Williams.
So he's likely to back up now. Bryce Williams has had a couple carries. He's actually been playing, in recent games, but so he's another guy. But I think Kai Thomas at min price is the guy. If you want in GPPs, you want to fire up someone else from this backfield. But in cash, you just gotta play Irving over Thomas for sure. Comparing those guys.
There's one other cheap guy.
Yep.
Actually, as we're talking, just popped up too. Is I'm going to forget if I don't say it. DJ Jones from North Carolina. He's only 3K. And last week, I didn't even realize this. He carried the ball 11 times last week, 60 yards against Florida State. So if I'm running a bunch of GPPs out there, I have a little bit interest in DJ Jones, especially at that price, because I think he may be getting even more work. If you've seen, his work's been getting more and more work every week. And he's another guy with decent pedigree. So that's another that's more of a punt play.
Yeah.
I want to talk, I think Irvin probably is going to turn into a cash play unless we hear something differently in the next, 45 minutes or so about his usage. But he opens up a lot if you play him. He probably will get you Josh Downs if you're playing Howell with Warren and Spiller.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good call. I didn't even sorry, I was just looking at game logs to see. So the backup to Chandler is Caleb Hood, and he got hurt last game, or he was out last game against Florida State. So maybe that's why DJ Jones got more run. So I guess we'll see. That's a 3:30 game, so you just don't know if Hood's going to be in there or not.
Yeah, that's a good point too. I didn't dig that.
Yeah.
I didn't dig that much deeper into that. I don't want to tell anybody. So I guess Jones has been struggling with some injuries too. So it looks like he was healthy. They finally had him healthy last week, and they got him doubled. He saw 32 snaps.
Yeah.
So remember in week 1 in that Virginia Tech game, he did see a bunch of time when Chandler was struggling that week 1. We didn't have a really good game. And you saw Jones playing that game, so looks to me like I think the staff does like Jones, but he just been dealing with some injuries. So I just think that's a sneaky little call here for GPPs.
Yeah,
it's cheap. I mean, come on, 3K.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
And if he flubs, he flubs at 3K.
Interesting. All right. By the way, I'm just looking at, we got Michael Penix from Indiana confirmed, not dressed. So Zach Tuttle going to be the starter there if you were thinking about playing him, as we were talking about earlier in the stream. And LSU, so now let's move over to receiver. And LSU wide receiver Deion Smith is confirmed out today, freshman receiver. So let's just start with the LSU receivers, because this is a big thing. Because if you look at the top of the position pool, obviously you see Kayshon Boutte out. He is out for the year. So this opens up a ton in the LSU receiving core. And Deion Smith, as we just said, he is out. And he was a guy that's been involved. They just got a lot of young guys trying to prove themselves in this receiving core. Jack Betch is a guy to look at. He's not a receiver, typical receiver. He's tight end, but he's now one of he's the highest priced remaining guy, but he's actually been involved most games this year. So he's maybe the guy if you're looking for someone safest to play among that receiving core. But then I think I don't know how much you can trust these guys in cash, because we don't know what they're going to be doing. We got Brian Thomas Jr. is in play. But the guy I wrote about in the playbook, because he was min-price, is Malik Neighbors. I think he's interesting. Caught a touchdown last week against Kentucky after Boutte went out. I just think we just don't know who's going to emerge as kind of like Max Johnson's favorite guy now, because it was Boutte. It was Boutte getting a ton of targets, ton of yards every single game, especially in the red zone. So I don't know, which way are you leaning with this receiving core now that we know Deion Smith is out?
I'm really not touching it much, unless I'm multi-entering. But to me,
yeah.
I like the Brian Thomas Jr. because you have definitely seen an increase in his role lately. I think he's the one guy. So the last 3 weeks, he's third on team with 15 targets, 8 or at least 10 yards downfield, and But if you're, I can't be playing. I think he's the best, but the tight end, Beck, I think he's probably the safest, and he's really cheap on FanDuel. If you're playing FanDuel, Beck I think is a really good value play. I saw a price earlier. Somebody's playing FanDuel. You could check that out. Use it as a value play, but I just can't. You can't touch any of these guys in any kind of main or type lineups.
Yeah, it is tough to trust them. So in that game, by the way, 61 over under. With Florida and LSU is 12.5-point favorites now to Florida. Florida's getting more and more money here. They'll be trailing for sure against Florida. So they're going to be passing it. And LSU, if you're looking at anybody from that team, it's definitely the receivers and not the running backs. So
here's an interesting note. So Daniel Jackson, the Minnesota starting receiver, is not dressed. So he leads the team receptions. Whatever. He's got 15 receptions, 155 yards. But now he's not dressed. So is that pushing more toward the running game more? This Irving kid. And also, Michael Penix is not dressed not on pads on the sideline. So there goes Jack Tuttle taking snaps of the first team.
Yep. Yeah. Jack Tuttle be in.
That's some late news here. So I didn't mean to cut you off there, but I thought that was interesting.
Well, no, so more and more we talk about this, I think Irving's gonna be locked into cash just because I want to eat that chalk. If he goes off, I have it.
I agree with you.
It's really hard to get away from, and he's like the value that you can. It helps you just find another stud at receiver or running back that you want. So or quarterback, if you want to pay up for 2 quarterbacks. So all right. So let's talk about some of these other receivers before we get out of here. By the way, if you guys have any questions on the Discord, we are here to talk about to answer any of your questions for the next 10 minutes or so, and then we'll be in the Discord chat, me and Pete, helping you guys up until lineup lock at noon Eastern. All right, receivers, high price guys. Josh Downs, Jordan Addison. We got Tay Martin in play here. Xavier Worthy now priced up. The Cincy guys, Alec Pierce in play. Compare all these guys. I mean, Josh Downs is going to be the guy that most people look at, especially if they want to pair him with Sam Howell. Tough to pay up for him, I think, in cash, but I mean, the dude's a stud and just getting, he's been so consistent this year. So it's, I don't blame you for just locking him into cash. So, but compare all those guys, which way are you leaning or just kind of ignoring the top range?
And I think Downs is the best play probably. I mean, he's got a good matchup. I mean, he's been dominant. The only way you're going to be able to use him in cash is he's probably going to use a guy like Irving in your flex, and then you possibly can get him. I like Addison a lot. I mean, he produces every week, almost 30 fantasy points a game. That's the greatest matchup. But especially if I think if Jermaine Waller's on him, he may have some issues, but still, I like Addison. Addison scores. I think he's had a touchdown every single week. He hasn't had that huge game. I mean, he's not having these, big game. I mean, 40, 60-yard catches and stuff like that. But he's still the best in football. Downs and Addison, I think, are pretty much in a class by themselves. If I'm playing, if I'm playing Kenny Pickett, I'm playing Addison. Just the way that is, probably.
I think that pairing will be more. Will definitely go overlooked compared to Downs. Howell.
Very contrarian.
Yeah.
But after that, man, I just think this is a weird. I think there's a lot of overpriced receivers. There's no one I'm really in love with. I mean, some guys to me like Treylon Burks. Great receiver. To me, more of a GBP play. I like this Tyquan Thornton kid. I love that price at $5,200 for Baylor. Because they do have interest in Baylor this week. They had a big game last week. So there's a bunch of the Michigan State guys, Naylor and Reed, both are in play, but you never know which one's going to go off. Freifogel, we mentioned him before. If you do go the cheap quarterback, you definitely pair him with Tuttle because Michigan State kind of is like a pass funnel. So definitely play Freifogel with Tuttle if I'm going that way. But just a bunch of guys that I think are more like value. You can get away out of it. And Trey Turner. I think Trey Turner may be actually one of my favorite cash plays. Small. That's the other name. He just gets last two games double-digit targets. I think Trey Turner is the best play in that Virginia Tech game on the BT side. A lot of value.
By the way, no, that was a good breakdown. I'm trying to monitor this because a quick Twitter search for the name Marquis Irving. And this is, if you guys are watching the live stream, this is what you get if you're not doing this yourself on Twitter. It looks like in warmups, he is with the third string offense, and we have Kai Thomas and Bryce Williams running with the starters here. Take that with a grain of salt. Take that what you will.
Yep.
But if we have,
I'm seeing the same tweet now.
Yeah,
this is reputable too. So
yeah, this guy is Andy Greeter, sports writer for St. Paul Pioneer Press, covers the Minnesota Gophers.
Wow. Very interesting. That's what it says. Interesting tweet. But
I mean,
Ian Williams are with Tanner Morgan, but man, that's just the original.
It might just be. Obviously warm-ups, it's like something you always have to take it with a grain of salt. But I think it's interesting that he is, they have Kai Thomas, Bryce Williams. So maybe you're kind of leaning off Irving in cash. I'll say that. But there's also a chance where he smashes and is indeed the starter. This is DFS for you. It's like, these last minute, you're like, this is not the way we thought it was going to be. And
one thing I've learned DFS is I've probably done it more in college hoops is, at 5 of 12 overreacting on a play. All of a sudden you see somebody starting over somebody else. And next thing you know, for disciplinary reason, the guy only sat 5 minutes. So you do have to watch sometimes overreacting with news, but this is a little bit different though.
This is different. So maybe Kai Thomas Kai Thomas might be the guy, one of the guys to look at, because he was a guy that got extended run in that Colorado game. We were talking about him earlier. Scored a touchdown in that game. So interesting there. And Kai Thomas was a guy, he was a high recruit last year. And he kind of been, I guess, behind Irving, but they've both been behind Ibrahim and then Potts. So it's not like either one has gotten any looks as the starter yet. So something to keep in mind. Other receivers, I think, like, if we're looking at this mid range, I think like someone like Joshua Moore for Texas is interesting to me, because Whittington is out for the year. Obviously Xavier Worthy's the guy there, but if I'm looking in this mid-range 5K range, I like Joshua Moore a lot. I mean, this Texas receiving core is going to be tough to figure out, because Moore hasn't been too involved as we would have thought, this year, but it could be him. Apparently Marcus Washington is going to be sliding to that starting spot now with Whittington out, but it might still be Moore getting targets over Washington. So
I think so.
Yeah. And it's tough to trust Washington at min price, but I mean, I guess he's a guy to look at. And what about this mid range? Because I think, normally people will have to try to find one or two guys in this range to make lineups work. You mentioned, Trey Turner, I like too. I think that's a good call.
Turner's my favorite cash.
Yeah, he was a good call. You saying that, I like that.
Thornton to me is a cash / GPP.
Yep, I like Thornton.
We really didn't mention. I'm probably going a little bit lower now, but Anis Smith, who's 4.4, and Weidermeyer, who's really cheap. And A&M, I even like A&M runners better. But
Weidermeyer caught a touchdown last week.
We talk about Weidermeyer every week, and I just stopped playing him. But now he's down to 3.9.
He'll catch 2 touchdowns this week.
He's gonna get played. If anything, I would probably go to. I like Lucas Kroll, and I've actually had some success with Lucas Kroll in Pittsburgh. He's not at 5 touchdowns for Pittsburgh now. To me, he's a better pivot on Weidermeyer, who's going to be chalky. But when we start getting down that range, it's kind of a weird. Says I think with some of these plays, you are going to want that 3K receiver, 3 to 4K, and there's not much. So I you get all the way down like a Drew Estrada, but that middle range there, I don't know if I can trust these A&M receivers though. I just think it's all about the run. I can see them throwing the ball 15 times today and run the ball the rest of the way. Yeah,
I agree.
It's get stuck with Jalen Weidermeyer on my team.
I think if last week against Alabama was like the time to play him for sure, because you knew Texas A&M was going to have to throw to keep up and keep pace. So I like that last week, but this week, Texas A&M starting to get more money. They're becoming bigger favorites now on the spread. It might just be a game where they lean on the run and don't even have to throw, as you mentioned. So, yeah.
There's another value that I never see him talked about is the kid for North Carolina, the tight end.
Morales.
Morales, right? No, did you put him in your
I do. Playbook? Yep. I got him in the playbook.
Yeah, that's right. It's like, wow, I didn't see anybody talk about Morales until I saw you put him in your playbook. And I think he's caught a touchdown like every game, like the last 4 games, right? He's second team in passes.
Yeah. Listen, I was watching a couple weeks ago. I'm looking at they played Georgia Tech, and I remember I was watching that game, and he had 7 catches for 66 yards and a touchdown.
And
I was like, damn, this guy's involved. Obviously Downs was the guy, and Morales, emerged, and then he hasn't been on the main slate that I've written about over the last couple of weeks, but he's still caught a touchdown for 4 straight games now, and I was just looking through the player pool, and I was like, how is this guy min price?
Yeah, so it might be a sneaky call, but I don't hear his name talked about. Any other college football guys, DFS guys are all his names. And, I want to say the other thing was before we get off too, it just hit me as I was looking at your playbook.
Yeah.
If you look last week, your example lineups, I think it was last week that I went back and looked. If you played your example lineup in that main cash, I think that would have won the 44. That was in a 44. Somehow I was looking at something in I was like, wait, I went down your list. You built a crushing example lineup last week in cash. I'm telling you that.
I appreciate that. I appreciate that, man. It's funny. I did not play that example lineup for sure because I didn't do as well as you just said. So
go back and look. I think it was
the thing with the example lineups.
44-hour GDP.
Yeah. The thing with the example lineups is like I'm trying to make a good one, like but I already know in my mind that come game day, like right now we got 30 minutes to lock. I'm gonna make pivots. I'm gonna make changes. Definitely, I'm gonna someone like what I don't even know his name. The Minnesota running back Kai Thomas. Like I'm probably gonna make that change and put him in there instead of Irving now. So it's.
That's just tough about these. That's why it's just an example. You know what I mean? Tell people go out and use these lineups. But that lineup did crush.
But I appreciate that shout out. And while we're on that note, I'll shout you out because we got the night slate playbook coming up tonight. Real quick before we leave here, what's one or two things that from that slate that you are looking forward to, maybe a player or two?
Well, it's obviously a Matt Corral slate, so I think Corral is pretty much coming to a must play. I don't like the price, but I think you got to play him. Breece Hall is going to be a GPP play. I love Brian Robinson on that slate. I think this is finally the slate with John Mechie breaks out, and Benjamin Urasek is my sneaky play. Stanford, but for everything else, check it out. I like this Urasek kid, the tight end for Stanford.
I like that call. Yeah, there we go. The Stanford tight ends are always good. All right. Well, on that note, we appreciate you guys all checking out this live stream. And as always, we're going to be in the Discord. So if you haven't signed up for the Fantasy Alarm Discord, go do that. The DFS Alarm channel there on the Discord. We are there, me and Pete, helping you guys win. And obviously check out the DFS Alarm playbooks because we're always helping you win there. And as Pete mentioned, these example lineups, these all the write-ups that we do, we put the time in to help you guys out. So appreciate you guys putting the time for to watch us and to interact with us on Discord as well. All right, well, Pete, good luck today. Hopefully you picked the right value play. Okay.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. Good luck, guys. Thanks everyone, and we'll be in Discord.
All right. Appreciate you guys. Have a good one.